How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How have you been?
Oh, pretty good.
Long time no see.
I know. It's been since what, training camp?
Yeah.
So you went from Buffalo, and then you came to Pittsburgh, and then you spent a little time with Arizona.
Yes.
Now we're back in Pittsburgh. Is it safe to say Pittsburgh's your forever home?
Oh, absolutely, man. Love Pittsburgh. Love the community. The people here are awesome. People like yourself are awesome. And then, man, I just feel like when you play here, the city embraces you. And when you show the city love, they show you love back. A lot of our nonprofit work is here. My kids go to school here. My wife loves it here. So, yeah, this is definitely home for us.
Now you said your nonprofit stuff. Can you explain a little bit what you do?
Yeah, so I do a lot of work with the Ronald McDonald House Charities of Pittsburgh and Morgantown. I've actually been a board member with them since 2016, and you know, that's my baby. That's where I put most of my nonprofit efforts at. But I still do a lot of work with a ton of the other charities that are local in here. You think about the Lemieux Family Center, Children's Home as well, and then obviously you have the United Way, Southwestern Pennsylvania. Do a lot of work with them as well too. So
seems like you don't have a free second to breathe, huh?
No, man. Hey, I always look at it like this, man. When you're enjoying what you're doing, when you're enjoying helping people, it doesn't feel like you're busy. It doesn't feel like work. It's just like, this is fun to me, so I'm enjoying every aspect of it.
Yeah,
my family
that's great.
does too.
That's great. So we were talking a little bit off camera before we started. You came from James Madison, one of 8 in the league to be drafted. So for players who are at a Division I school, but they're smaller Division I schools, what do you have to say to them? Because you're an example that you can make it.
Yeah, well, I just tell them, man, if you're good, the NFL is going to find you. And also, once you get here, it's less about how you got here, and it's more about what you're going to do to stay. I mean, there's plenty of guys I played with that were first-round picks, top 10 picks, top 15 picks, and I've outlasted them. And it's less about how you got here. It's less about the pedigree. It's less about, oh, I was a first-round or second-round draft pick. Once you get here, we're all good. We all were, you know, All-Americans or All-Conference or whatever it is in our own right. So what are you going to do to separate yourself? So for me, I always said that I was going to outwork everybody. It didn't matter how fast you were, how big you were, what school you went to and things like that. I was going to make sure that when it came down to knowing what I had to do, you were never going to know more than me. When it came down to showing up, I was always going to be early. When it came down to that practice, I was always going to give it my all. And ultimately, man, it helped me get a 9-year career.
Hey, that's great work ethic there. So we're going to ask some just fun questions to learn a little bit about you real quick.
Okay.
So Team Nike or Team Jordan?
Oh, man. Well, okay. Technically, I'm Team Nike because of the umbrella. You know what I mean? Like Jordan falls under that umbrella. But I love my Jordans. In fact, I am a huge Jordan sneakerhead. Like, love my
How many
Jordans.
do you think you have?
Jordans or just shoes in general?
Shoes in general.
Shoes in general, probably 500, 600.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So you could go a whole year without wearing the same pair?
Oh, absolutely. I've done it,
So
love Jordans. Love sneakers, man.
What's your favorite color?
Red, yes.
Now, let's say you played offense. What position would you play?
Oh, I want to be a receiver, man. I want to make the big time catches, man, do all the celebrating and stuff. And there's less contact. I mean, if you play running back, I'm getting hit every play from the quarterback. I got to depend on my line to block for me. At the receiver position, man, I'm going to give you some moves. Once I get open, I'm Randy. I'm throwing the hand up.
You think you and Juju could go face to face in a 40?
Oh, absolutely, man. Back in my heyday. Back in my heyday.
So you say you love Pittsburgh. What's your favorite place to eat in Pittsburgh?
Oh, man, so are we talking high-end restaurant or are we talking mom and pop?
You can give me both.
Okay, so if we're talking high-end, I'm a big steak guy. I love Morton's. That's my baby. I spent a couple birthdays there. My wedding anniversary we did there. But when we're talking, you know, the mom and pops, man, Pamela's. Oh, man, I love just that breakfast style. You know, they're back there cooking it up extra greasy. It's probably not healthy, but man.
You can always have a cheat meal once in a while, right?
No question.
So, no, why the number 55? Was that given to you, or did you pick it?
No, so it was a mix of both, actually. So I had wore 52 my whole career, ever since high school. Like, I love 52. That was always my number. But obviously here, they're not giving that out, man. It's a legend. They had that from Mr. Webster himself. So I had a couple of options, and I think it was 50, 56, and 55. So at the time, I was like, I really wasn't a 50 fan. I just didn't like that number. And I was like, 56, Lamar Woodley had just had that on. And I'm like, well, 55, I like it. It's symmetrical. It looks dope. But I'm like, Joey Porter used to wear that. And I was a big fan of Joey Porter's growing up. So I'm like, man, that'd be dope. But at the time, he had just got hired to the staff. So now I'm like,
now you got big shoes to fill.
I'm like, well, we need to have a little conversation. So I reach out to him and everything. Like, I'm just like, hey, man, is it cool if I wear your number 55? He's like, yeah, man, just make sure if you're putting it on that, you know, you do it right. You know, you make sure that you represent it the right way. And you know, don't put nothing bad out there on the field. So
there is a process that goes into picking numbers.
Absolutely. Yes, indeed.
It's because there's some people that think you just get the jersey number because of your position. Obviously, with your position, you can only have certain numbers.
Correct. And then also with depending on how you're coming to the team, if you're an undrafted guy, your selection or options for numbers might not be that. You might just get whatever is left over. But me, I was coming through free agency. I already had 4 years in the league. And when I came here, they already had a mutual respect. It was already mutual respect. So it was like, well, hey, these are the options. Which one do you want to pick first? And then from there, you know, that whoever else we pick up through free agency or in the draft, choose from that way.
Now, you said you came through free agency. What's that like? You know, one day you're with one team, the next day you find out you're not. So what's...
it was a crazy experience. So I've experienced free agency 3 times now. So my first experience, it was unique in the sense of we had a market, but it was one of those, yes, you could sign somewhere for more money, but was it going to be the best situation? I was coming from Buffalo, and at the time, my defensive coordinator had just left, Mike Pettin, to go be the head coach at Cleveland. And it was like, okay, I could go to Cleveland, but it was a lot of uncertainty with that. I'm like, I feel like that situation was just like what I was in Buffalo with the turnover, 2 different head coaches, different GMs, owners and stuff. Then it was like, okay, well, you go to another team, and they're not going to pay you as much.
Exactly.
So it was like, all right, I don't know. I still was just kind of on the fence about it. This is all going on through that first week of free agency. Me and Coach Tommy, we had a personal relationship just from him being from my hometown, obviously us both being small school guys, and then just our time playing against each other. Well, him coaching and me playing against the Steelers throughout my career in Buffalo. So he reached out and was like, man, look, I know you've been playing inside linebacker. I know that's what people are talking about, you playing in free agency, but I know what you could do from an outside linebacker standpoint, defensive end standpoint, and what you did in college. If you're willing to take a minimum salary to come here on a chance, and it works out, we'll definitely extend you and we'll take care of you. And I was just kind of like, I don't know, like my wife was pregnant at the time, like there was just a lot of uncertainties, and it's like, man, we're talking about going down in money to go to a situation that I don't know, going back to a position full-time that I haven't played in years. But at the end of the day, man, we're like, you know what, let's jump, let's take that chance, and it worked out. We had success that first year. Then, I mean, they stayed true to their word, gave me the 3-year contract extension. And from there, man, it was just an amazing experience.
Yeah, and then you spent a little time in Arizona as well. Now, how did you know come the end of, what was it, last season? That it was just time to hang up your cleats?
Well, I never really understood. Well, like, I never really said to myself, oh, it's time to hang up the cleats. It was more so like, hey, we're going to transition from Pittsburgh, go to AZ. I ended up getting hurt in Arizona. And it was just like, you know what, I'm really enjoying being home. I'm really enjoying doing the media stuff. So from there, it was like, let's dive into this more. So yeah, it was never an official, oh, you're done, you're not done. It's just like,
so
media right now.
So need be, Keith Butler calls you up, you ready to throw the 55 back on?
I haven't decided. Well, that's my thing. It's like, I mean, people ask me about it a lot, and I'm just kind of like, I don't know. I mean, I'm at peace right now with what I'm doing currently, and I'm enjoying it. And I feel like I'm very fortunate to be in this position. Like you said, having an 9-year career is extremely long, when the average career span is 2.5 to 3 years. So for me, it's just like, you know what, let's just continue to see where we're at, because I don't want to commit to anything until I know 100%.
So basically the chapter ended, but the book didn't close yet.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
All right, so whenever we come back, we're going to be talking about some things going on around the NFL. You know, a little bit of the cliche topics that we just have to talk about as NFL fans.
Listen, you wouldn't be doing your justice as a journalist if you weren't talking about these things.
So we'll be right back. All right, guys, so we're back with Arthur Moats. Now, we learned about your time on the field, but now it's time to talk about those cliche things, as we mentioned.
Indeed.
So you decided it was time to retire. Now we got word that Rob Gronkowski and Jordy Nelson are time to retire. What do you think that means for the Steelers? I mean, Rob Gronkowski, we can't really stop him. So do you think the Patriots are going to go downhill, or do you have faith in Bill Belichick?
Well, put it like this, man. I've had a ton of faith in Bill Belichick. He's one of those guys, it doesn't matter who's on the field, they're going to find ways to be successful. I mean, when you talk about top-tier teams, guys or organizations who consistently are in that playoff contention, are consistently talked about in, you know, those top 5 teams in the NFL, New England's always up there, Pittsburgh is always up there. There's a couple other teams that they're always going to be in that conversation. So even with Rob being out now officially, I still think they're going to be fine. And you also got to think about the times that they've spent with him being hurt. They still find ways to be successful, man.
Now, do you think Tom Brady is ever going to retire?
Oh, who knows, man? Who knows? He's one of those guys that it's like he could be 50 and he still might go, you know what, I think I'm going to go play another year. Like, he's one of those guys.
Now, we did talk a little bit about retirement and everything. Now, we got guys that like to sit out years and then take a pay cut, you know, Mr. Le'Veon Bell. What do you think happened with him?
Man, I think it was a mix of he felt that he was making the best decision for himself. Right? He understood that, hey, he took a lot of carries. He had, I think it was 400 touches that passed his last year in Pittsburgh. And he said, okay, is it going to make sense for me to take another chance like that on a 1-year deal and potentially get hurt? Or he could say, I could have took the deal that they offered him. Granted, it was enrolling guarantees, but for him, at the end of the day, it's him. He has to be comfortable with it because he's the one going out there. So he took a chance on himself. It can be viewed if he won or lost, depending on the spectrum you're looking at. If you're looking from overall money playing situation, I feel like it was a bad decision. But if you're looking for the short-term guarantees and what you did get, well then okay, he accomplished that. So it just kind of depends on your perspective, how you view it. I personally wouldn't. I don't think I would have took that course of action. And I wonder if he had to do it again, would he take the same course of action? But I think in that regard, it's a little different for him.
A lot of people fail to look at the short term rather than just he took a huge pay cut. But do you think he's going to do well with his new quarterback?
Put it like this, from a productivity standpoint, we're talking numbers. I don't, just because you have to think about the offense he was in. Similar to what AB is going to go through. They had at the time a top 5 quarterback, top 5 receiver, top 5 running back, top 3 offensive line, like however you want to spin it, however you want to debate it. All those guys working together. I mean, it took, even when you're getting attention, it's still, it was so much other weapons around you that it took attention away from you, so you were able to have that type of success. Same with AB, him going to Oakland. That offense isn't the same as it here in Pittsburgh. So those are the things you have to factor in, and those are the things you have to realize that, hey, that Jets offense, it can't compare to what you have here in Pittsburgh. Quarterback, offensive line, other weapons around you. And I feel like he's going to learn the hard way. Him and AB are going to learn the hard way when it comes to that.
Now, you have to realize, a lot of people don't realize too, Pittsburgh's offense was built around AB, Bell. You know,
the killer bees.
That name just didn't come out of nowhere. You know, so they're going to have to go from being number one to they're still number one, but are they number one on that team?
Absolutely.
You know, and a lot of people fail to mention that. But speaking of what has been going on, you said Pittsburgh treated you like a person, right? A human, right?
Yes, indeed.
So there's been some comments that you don't really agree with.
Yeah, you can say that, man. And I feel like I said, everybody's situation is different. You talk to me about my time in Pittsburgh, it's going to be drastically different than a guy like a Le'Veon or somebody who might have not had success here. I mean, I just feel like everyone's situation is always going to be unique and different. But it's also, I feel like what you get into it is also, I mean, what you put in is what you're going to get out of it as well. So if, you had time where the ratio was good, but then it comes to a time where now you're playing hardball and business decisions are being made, where that can drastically change your perspective as well.
I think Joe Hayden said he was treated fairly, but he can't speak the same for everyone, which is basically the same thing. Now, we have some other new rules. The pass interference call.
Yes, indeed.
How do you feel about that? Because if it was different, the Steelers would have beaten the Saints.
Absolutely.
Because Mike Mitchell definitely didn't touch that receiver.
Well, and this is the thing, man. Or Joe Hayden.
Joe Hayden. I'm sorry.
So for me, I say it like this, right? I love the fact that they implemented it because you can't have plays like that. Like you said, that cost the Steelers a playoff game. And then you think about that following, 2 weeks later in the NFC Championship game, that cost the Saints a chance to go to the Super Bowl. So they were on both ends of that. So for me, I'm a firm believer in still keeping the human element of the game and not trying to, every call should be challenged, every call should be reviewed, but it's certain plays that are weighted differently in games. And those 2 plays, for example, just show how significant an egregious error by an official can be, whether they made the call or didn't make the call. That it costs, and it's just too much time, it's too much hard work that goes into it for guys to lose opportunities to be successful at winning a championship because of a blown call.
I couldn't agree more. I don't even have anything else to say. I think you just said everything. But so we talked about Le'Veon, we talked about AB, of course. We talked about Mike Tomlin. So now the draft's coming up. You know what it's like, 6th round, right?
Yes.
So 20th pick overall, you're Kevin Colbert. You're making the call. What are you doing? Are you picking what position you picking? Who are you thinking about picking?
Well, because of the moves they've made via free agency, they do have the option to go best player available. And this is why. When you bring in Steven Nelson at corner, right? That takes a lot of the pressure of having to get a guy at 20th overall for your corner position. When you bring in Mark Barron, that alleviates some of the pain of replacing Shazier, because now Mark is better as a coverage linebacker, especially with you losing LJ Fort through free agency. You still have somebody who can cover now. So that alleviates some of that pressure. Now, you still can ask yourself about the receiver standpoint, because because you know you have Juju, but we don't know what we're going to get from James Washington yet on a 16-game basis, and you bring in Dante Moncrief, who can be successful, but he hasn't showed the sustained success yet. So I can see them going receiver at 20. Obviously, a DK Metcalf is a guy that I think would be really good here. Yeah. I think he would complement Juju very well, and I think he's another bigger body, fast receiver. Similar to like what we saw when we had Martavis here. Like those type of athletes, I feel like could be very special. But at the same time, when you have 10 draft picks, I could also see them packaging and trading up to potentially get a Devin Bush, a linebacker who can be a 3-down guy, sideline to sideline, very similar to the Shazier type. So I feel like if I'm Kevin Colbert, I'm either going to go best pick available. If DK's there, I'll stay and get DK at receiver at 20, or I'll trade up and go potentially get Devin Bush. That's my thought process.
Yeah, well, you heard it first from Arthur Moats here. When we come back, we have 2 more things we're going to talk about. Something he mentioned, the filling the void of Shazier, and what are those receivers going to do now that we don't have AB? We'll be right back. All right, guys, so we're back. So now we have a couple more things to talk about. Now, you mentioned it a little bit. The Steelers are still trying to fill that void of Ryan Shazier that we both know might not ever be filled.
Very true.
Now we get Mark Barron in. He can play a little bit. Now Terrell Edmonds is a bigger safety, so need be he could help out. What do you think of the Steelers linebackers now? I mean, they just re-signed Anthony Chickillo. What do you think about him too?
Man, well, Chick is one of my guys. I mean, you got to think, when I was here, he was my young pup, man. I remember seeing him get drafted. I remember seeing his whole journey, how he developed and things like that. I feel like he definitely has potential to be very successful in this league. Obviously, I'm still very high on Bud. I feel like Bud is just a piece away from turning that corner and legit becoming a force in this league. You already know what you have in TJ. I mean, TJ's been doing it. He's the guy.
It's the last name.
He has that bloodline, man. But I still like the linebackers, man. You got to think Vince Williams, man. Obviously, I don't think he had the same type of success this year as he did with Shazier, just because you know, when you pair him with Bostic, they are very similar in playing style and body type. So it was very different for him. But I think, man, bringing in Mark Barron is definitely going to help out a lot. And depending on what they do at that in the draft early on, if they bring in a speedier linebacker, I feel like when you pair that with the Vince Williams, I feel like they can have a ton of success. So I'm still very high on them, and I think that they're definitely going to bounce back and have a really good year.
Yeah, because I feel like once we fix that up, we got a solid defensive line. You know, that's,
and then the corners, like I said, Joe Hayden's a top flight corner in this league, man. I'm still very high on. Like I said, the guys out there, Sean Davis, I feel like he's still continuing to grow.
Yeah, I don't think we've seen all of Sean Davis. Yeah. Now, on the other side of the ball, we don't have AB anymore.
Correct.
We talked about that. Do you think Juju has it in him to be a top receiver? What do you think about the other receivers?
Well, I still like James Washington a lot. I think that he has the potential to do the really good things. But at the same time, if you heard Coach Tomlin's comments, he's like, hey, the guys who show us what they can do on a consistent basis in practice are the guys that are going to ultimately show up in the games. And similar to James Conner, when he was out here his first year, just doing the practice squad reps, you know, because he wasn't getting on the field but it was like just seeing him, how he worked every day, how he continued to grow and get better before he got hurt. It was like, okay, this guy has potential. Then he comes back in training camp, OTAs, and continues to show himself. So I feel like that James Washington can do that same type of stuff, have that same type of work ethic this offseason. I think he could take that next step in his game. And when you just talk about athletes in general, younger players, they take their biggest steps after year one. That year 1 to year 2 jump is usually where they make their most strides, because now they've had a full off season. They understand what it takes, the grind of a 16-week season. They understand also that, hey, I have to not just rely on my athletic ability, but I have to mentally know what's going on, because the athletes at this level are so much better than collegiately. So I feel like that's why they grow. And I think with him, if he takes his craft seriously and he is truly becoming a professional, then we'll see it when he comes back in OTAs and in training camp.
Yeah, that's where the term sophomore slump comes in.
Absolutely.
So now Le'Veon too. James Conner's our man now.
Indeed.
From what we've seen of him, can he carry the team?
I definitely feel like he can. He's built for this type of action. I feel like less about what he's been through, but just when you think about the makeup of him from an on-field standpoint, he's a big bruising back. As a defender, you don't like playing against guys like that, because that wears on you the longer the game goes, and he continues to get stronger the longer the game goes. I personally would like to see him continue to get more touches throughout the season. There was some times where he didn't get as many touches, I thought, and I felt like it kind of hurt the team going down in some of those third and fourth quarter stretches and stuff like that. But I think he's a guy that is definitely going to continue to excel.
Yeah, I think him and Jalen Samuels complement each other well.
Absolutely.
I think the running game, though, of course, we still have people that think Le'Veon is going to break our team. I think the run game is solid, and the receivers have a little bit of issues to go through. And once we fix that linebacking issue, we'll be all right.
Well, and I also would say this when we talk about the running game too. The offensive line, them being able to keep Ramon and I think that was very huge. And then you also bring back Matt Fowler, man. Like, I feel like all of those guys are still going to be able to have a ton of success, and you've seen the success they've been able to sustain throughout these past couple of seasons.
And then we got, I'm going to mess up his name, but we're going to call him Chooks.
I call him Chooks. Yeah, I'm not even
we got Chooks. We got Chooks coming back. I met him in the middle of Walmart. Yeah. Man, he is a big dude. Absolutely. And I liked what I've seen from him on training camp. I obviously didn't get to see too much of him. He played in a couple games, but I'm confident. I'm very confident.
Absolutely.
But
well, you think, man, he did have a big game versus Denver when he stepped in. And, I mean, your first game as a rookie is versus Von Miller.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Well, he held his own, though, but so that was very promising.
That has to be pretty scary going against one of the game's best, you know. So we got to talk to you a little bit. I appreciate you coming on the show, but now you're doing your own show. So can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, man. So it's called the Arthur Moats Show. I've been broadcasting off of my Instagram channel, or IGTV, which is out of Debody 52, and then it's also on my website, arthurmoats55.com. And yeah, man, I'm just continuing to use my platform. As I was telling you earlier, it's like I haven't decided what I want to do, if I still want to continue to play or if I want to just continue this media route. But this gives me opportunity to use my platform to talk about football, to talk about other sports, lifestyle topics, and things that I'm very passionate about. So yeah, man, it's fun.
Yeah, so always growing, right?
Absolutely, man. You can never stay the same. You can't be complacent no matter how much success you have in life. It's always something that you can continue to grow and get better at. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it right now.
You heard it from Arthur Moats right there. All right, guys, so that does it for this episode of Julie's Playbook.